there's a lot of Bitcoiners who have never actually sent a Bitcoin transaction before. I think there's a lot of people out there who think that all Bitcoin transactions are created equal. All Bitcoin wallets are created equal. And that's simply not the case. So the video I'm about to show here is actually from one of our days within the 365 days of Bitcoin. I've been doing a 5, 10, 15-minute video on Bitcoin every single day for 2025. And this, I think, is one of the most important ones. So I want to share with everybody here, just so you're aware of kind of some things to look out for within Bitcoin. So when you're talking about sending on Bitcoin to Lightning, like if you were to send Bitcoin to Arnie's wallet here, if you were to send Bitcoin to a friend, if you're consolidating your UTXOs, if you are pulling money from an exchange and bring it into your wallet, those are all kind of different transactions. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be walking through fully a Bitcoin layer 1 transaction, from setting up the transaction, setting the fee, signing the transaction, broadcasting that transaction, and then following it in the mempool until it is confirmed. So I remember the first time I went through this process of sending my first Bitcoin transaction. It's pretty nerve-wracking, I'm not going to lie, but it was also very liberating, we'll say. It honestly changed my life, because I realized that I could send value to anybody, anywhere, without anybody's permission. I didn't have to check with my bank. The bank didn't have to be open. I didn't have to pay a fee to the bank. There was nobody who could stop that transaction. As long as I did it properly and I set a fee high enough, it's going to go through, which is a pretty big idea in my opinion. So throughout the process here, I've actually done a longer video on my channel, and I'll try to leave a link if I remember in the show notes. If you want to have a second look at this, the first time I did this was a lot different of an outcome. It took about 40 minutes. My transaction actually got stuck twice. I had to bump up the fee. And so these are the kind of things you have to be aware of when you're sending a Bitcoin transaction. Most of all, the first thing I would say is really pay attention to which wallet that you're using. So I recommend, if you're on a desktop, I recommend using Sparrow. And the reason I say that is because they have a feature within Sparrow called RBF, or replace by fee. And so if you set up your transaction, but you don't end up sending, if you don't set the transaction fee high enough, your transaction could just get stuck there for days, weeks. And it's actually happened to me before. Before I knew what I was doing in Bitcoin, I had one of my Bitcoin transactions get stuck. I think it was in a Moon wallet. And I had no idea what to do. I had no idea who to talk to. I actually ended up emailing the guy from Moon, the creator of the Moon wallet. And he got back to me and helped me through it. But it ended up costing me quite a bit. I think it was about $60 worth of fees at the time, which would probably be about the equivalent of $250 or $300 today in Bitcoin. So it was a pretty costly mistake there that I learned. And that's kind of the reason why I decided to make a Bitcoin channel, because between transaction fees, between UTXOs, I've learned quite a few hard lessons, very costly lessons. And I'm trying to pass on some of the experience that I've had to help others avoid that. I've touched the stove, I've been burned, and I'm hoping that anybody who watches these videos doesn't have to do that. So really pay attention to which wallet that you're using. Again, for desktop, I recommend Sparrow. For your phone wallet, I recommend Aqua. And I'll actually leave a link for both of these wallets in the show notes, just to make sure you're getting the right wallet. Another thing you got to be paying very close attention to is where you're downloading the wallets from. There's been a couple of instances in the last couple of weeks where people downloaded a wallet from like the Apple Store, Google Play Store, or a website, thinking that they were downloading the legitimate wallet. But it turned out that it was just pretty much a scam, straight up malware. They took the private key and the Bitcoin was gone. And unfortunately, at that point, there's really not a whole lot that you can do to get that Bitcoin back. So as you're going through this, as you're going through your own Bitcoin journey, there's so many different things like this that you need to be aware of. So again, this is from the 365 Days of Bitcoin course. I'll put a link to that too, in case anybody's interested in joining. If you join today, it's March 1st. So this is the 60th video today. I've been doing a video every single day for 2025. They're about 10, 15 minutes long, but it's kind of for beginners. I would say it kind of starts at zero, but it's also for anybody out there who's in Bitcoin and has a significant amount of their portfolio in Bitcoin, but they don't really fully trust themselves and want to be a little bit more well-rounded while growing their conviction around Bitcoin. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you actually take the time, if you haven't yet, to send your very first transaction within Bitcoin on layer 1. Layer 1's a much different beast from Lightning, Liquid, eCash, exchanges. It's very secure. It's immutable. It's a little bit more costly, and it takes a little bit more time. But this is, once you understand layer 1 of Bitcoin, you understand the real value proposition of Bitcoin. And everything that's going to be built on top of this will have different trade-offs, but it's all going to be built on that really solid layer 1 Bitcoin network. So I hope you enjoy this. Again, I hope you try out for yourself your very first Bitcoin transaction. I encourage people to download the Sparrow wallet from the show notes here. Just play around, take like 50,000 sats, 100,000 sats, set up a transaction. You can send it back to your own wallet, but just go through the process and you'll get a better understanding and really appreciate exactly what's happening behind the curtain in Bitcoin. So enjoy the video, and we'll talk to you soon. It's a big one, folks. Bookmark this one. Day 58, a day to remember. As promised, we're going to be sending a Bitcoin transaction today. So the last time I did this was on a live show. And I was not going to lie, I was probably a little bit ahead of my skis. It worked out great. It took 45 minutes because I set up the transaction, I set a fee, and the Bitcoin network started getting very busy. And when the Bitcoin network gets very busy, that's when the fee goes up. Because we have to remember here, before we start this today, in every single Bitcoin block is a bunch of transactions. All those transactions are just a bunch of data. And each block only has so much space in it for data. That's why it's scarce. The block space is scarce. That's why if you want to get into a block, you have to pay a little bit more. So let's get to it here. Let's get things started. So the first thing I would do actually in this case, I was going to start with Sparrow Wallet, but I'm actually going to start with the mempool. This is what I usually do when I'm about to send a Bitcoin transaction. I always check the mempool first because you're going to get to see what the fees are like. So the last block was 10 minutes ago. So if we set this up really quick, this might be a quick episode here. Oh, something's going off. Oh, it's going to be annoying. Of course, there's a wrench in this. There's an alarm going off out here. That's going to drive me nuts. So I'm just going to have to, I'll be right back. What the heck's going on, Arnie? Stop. What the heck's going on out here? All right. Well, I don't have time to edit this today, so I'm sorry I wasted 30 seconds of your time there. But you can see the last block was 11 minutes ago, so we might sneak this one in. Depends. But this is what I'm looking at right here. The next block, this is where my transaction is going to go into, right? Because we have to remember that every time we send a transaction, it goes into the mempool, which is this stuff over here. Anything that's on this side of the line has not been confirmed. It's sitting in the mempool. So I look at this right here and I say, okay, 5 sats per VByte. That's kind of the minimum to get my transaction into this block. So that's what I want to set my fee at. So 5 sats per VByte, I would say that that's pretty reasonable. I would like it to be a little bit lower, but it's not bad. It's doable. If this was like 15 or 20 or 25, I probably wouldn't be sending the transaction today because I value sats that much and I don't really feel like wasting them. But this is legit. So I'm going to use this. This is 5 sats per VByte. So I always start with the mempool. That's the first place I start. So now I'm going to go into my Sparrow wallet here. And I wonder if I can do, yeah, I should be able to do this. I got to do the entire screen so we can see pop-ups and everything here. Okay, so we've seen this wallet before. This is my test wallet. This has my co-op equity checks in it. So I'm actually going to be sending this. So it's going to consolidate these two into one new UTXO. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my UTXO screen. And you can do this one of two ways. You can either go to send. If you knew who you were paying, if you knew the amount you needed to pay, you can do it through send. But in this case, I want to include both of my UTXOs here. And so I want to highlight both of these. And you can see at the bottom, it says send selected, 72,000 sats. And while I'm down here, one thing to always make sure is that this is connected. Make sure that it's yellow. If this is toggled off, you're not going to be able to do anything on your Sparrow wallet. So make sure that this is always toggled on. And if you ever run into a situation where your transaction is not showing up or your balances aren't loading, this is the first place you need to check. Make sure that this is connected to a node that's toggled on. So now I go to send selected. And I had a receive address that I'm just going to check on the mempool to see if that's been, no, it hasn't. Okay, we might sneak this one in. So I have a wallet address that I found from a different wallet that I'm going to send these 72,000 sats to. So that's what I put into the pay to. And you always want to verify like the last 5 digits here. So 52H0, I want to just double check that that's my wallet here. And that is correct. So now I can put, we can just say consolidating, or you can put whatever you want here, but you should be fairly particular with your labels. I'm usually really good with labeling my stuff in terms of where it came from or where it's going to. So make sure you take advantage of the label here. But you can see here, this is connected to the mempool. So because I'm connected to a node here, because this is toggled on, this is actually synced up with the mempool. So you got 2 options here. You can use target blocks or mempool size. As mentioned in the last video, I use mempool size. So I'm going to bump this up a little bit because this is a video. It's a little bit higher priority for me. So I'm going to set this at 6. I don't want to be wasting sats, but I want it to get through the next. I want this to be included in the next block. So we'll set it at 6.03. It's going to cost me 1,000 sats. And I'm kind of rushing here a little bit, and I don't really want to be, but it would be nice if we could get this done in the right order, or in, without taking half an hour. So this is still, the next block hasn't been confirmed yet. So I got the fee set, a little bit higher priority than they suggest, but I want this to be confirmed right away. So I got my fee there. You can see it's pulling from this UTXO and this UTXO, creating this one new UTXO minus my fee. So now I go to create transaction. I go finalize transaction for signing. And because this is a hot wallet, oh, we got alarms going off everywhere here. Because this is a hot wallet, I can actually sign the transaction here. If I was doing this from a hardware device, I wouldn't be able to sign it on my laptop. I would have to sign it on my device first, save the transaction, load the transaction into Sparrow, and then sign it once it's been signed on my hardware device. But in this case, it's a hot wallet, so I can sign it here. So sign, you can see it fill up there. Now I'm going to broadcast it. Ready? There we go. And I hope we didn't miss it on mempool, but you can see there it says it's been unconfirmed. So right now it's just sitting in the mempool, waiting to be put into a block. So let's just make sure that nothing has happened here. No, we're still good. This is going to be perfect, hopefully. Although you can see now, this is the nerve-wracking part. You can see now that the average fee has gone up to 6 sats per VByte. So I still should be okay because I set it to 6.03 sats per VByte. But the longer this takes, the higher the fees could go up, and it might run away from me again here. So this is the exciting part about Bitcoin. So now if I go back to my Sparrow wallet, you can see the transaction ID here for the transaction that I just sent. So what you can do here, you can either copy this. There we go. It confirmed. That was quick. You can see Foundry just got the block. I just got a notification on my other screen here. That's why I said that. But you can see here that this transaction was just put into this block right here. So this was just going back to this screen because I think this is important. So you can see this transaction ID here. Oh, I hit it again. So you can either copy this. This is the easiest though. You can just directly look at the transaction in mempool using this button. So you can open transaction in the configured block explorer, which in this case is the mempool. So if I open this up, if I press this button right here, it takes me to my transaction. So now I can see that the timestamp when it was confirmed, the features I had on it, the fee that I paid, the fee rate that I paid. And there you go. That's the input and output. So there's my first UTXO that it came from, which was a 50,000 sat UTXO. And this one was 22,000 sat UTXO. So these two UTXOs combined went into my new UTXO, which has 70,933 sats in it now. And the rest of it went to paying the fee. So really, that couldn't have worked out better in terms of the time. But, so you got one confirmation here. What does that mean? If we go back into our Sparrow wallet now, you can see that this is we got one confirmation here. We got the block height at which it was confirmed. We got the timestamp on it. And the thing to keep in mind here with the confirmation, when I set this transaction up, I signed it, I broadcast it. Again, it goes into the mempool. That's where it stays until there's a miner that's willing to put my transaction into that block when I'm paying a high enough fee. And if we go back to the mempool here, you can see that, there was a lot of people who didn't get their transaction put into that block. 52,000 people, actually. They set their fee much lower than mine. So I got put into the block. I set it as a higher priority, and I got my transaction put into this block where it's going to live there forever. So if we look at the confirmation now, we can see that that's been confirmed in one block. So when we hit block height 885614, that's when I'll have two confirmations. And when we hit block height 885615, that's when we'll have three confirmations on it. But all you need to know about a confirmation is that it's not spendable by any side until there's at least one confirmation. So when I send that transaction, again, just kind of going back at an overview of what just happened there. That was fast. Thankfully, it wasn't another 45-minute video here. But when I sent that transaction, it went into the mempool. That's where it stays. That's when it showed unconfirmed. Whenever it says unconfirmed, it shows in the mempool. And so until I get one confirmation on that, whoever I sent it to, they can't spend it. But now that it has one confirmation, it's now spendable. So now I could take that Bitcoin that I sent to my other wallet and I could spend it because it has one confirmation. When it has no confirmations or it's unconfirmed, it's still just sitting in the mempool. So it's not spendable by me, and it's not spendable by the person that I sent it to. It's just kind of in literal no man's land, waiting to be put into a block. So that was fun. That worked out pretty much perfectly, I think. 15 minutes long, right in line with our normal time here. And I mean, the thing you have to keep in mind here is that could have taken half an hour. That could have taken 45 minutes. That could have taken an hour. Just because the blocks are on average every 10 minutes, that doesn't mean that the next block is going to be in 10 minutes from now. You can see here that, if we just look at the last couple blocks that were mined, you can see that this one was an hour ago. The next one took half an hour to mine after that, then 10 minutes, then like 15 minutes. And now this one is in approximately 9 minutes. So I kind of wish it would have taken like a minute longer so we could have explored a little bit more of what was going on there. But I'm going to include the link to my YouTube video where I did this. There hasn't been many people watch it for some reason on YouTube. I don't think there's many people who understand, what this is and how important this is to understand. But I'll put a link in there. So you can put it on like 1.25x or 1.5x. It's 40 minutes long, but it goes through this exact same process with a couple more roadblocks where I kept getting skipped over. They kept ignoring my transaction there because I didn't set my fee high enough. So there's people who came after me who set a higher fee, and they got put into the block ahead of me. And again, I really want you to think about this like a lineup at the bar. So like on a really busy night, let's use, I don't know, what's a busy night? July 4th. You're at the bar, there's a big lineup, you get out of the cab, and you're like, holy shit, there's 200 people in line here. That's kind of like the mempool. The waiting line is like the mempool, where people are there and they're going to get in probably eventually. But if you got $100 bill in your pocket or more sats, you can skip the line. And so that's what happened to me. There was a bunch of people who came in after me. They were willing to pay a higher fee. And so my transaction just kept getting left out of the next block. So think about it like that. Think about the mempool as like a line to get into the bar, or a line to get into, a bar. I think that's the best way to look at it. And the more money you have in your pocket that you can pay the bouncer, the faster you can get in. You can just wait. You can pay like a 1 sat per VByte fee, 2 sat per VByte fee. You can just wait in line. You'll probably get in eventually. But if you want to prioritize, if you want to skip the line, you can pay more, just like in real life. So this worked out perfectly. I hope that made sense. And I'll share the link for the other video if you want to. That'll be kind of like a secondary thing that you can do. But for the most part, that's a pretty good idea of how the layer 1 works. So again, just to refresh one more time, when you send Bitcoin to when you send money to an exchange, you want to buy some Bitcoin from Bitcoin Well, Coinbase, ShakePay, you send them dollars. They say that you buy Bitcoin on the app, you buy it. But that's not an actual layer 1 transaction. This was a layer 1 transaction where it gets put into a block and you can actually go into mempool and verify all the details there. When you send somebody Lightning, if you were to zap this QR code right now, that wouldn't show up on the Bitcoin layer 1 network. That's a layer 2. And I would consider an exchange to be very similar to like a layer 2 as well, because none of those transactions within the exchange, it's just a big slush fund, just kind of like Lightning. It's a big slush fund, money's going back and forth, but the transactions actually aren't recorded and immutable and broadcast around the world like they are with layer 1. So very secure, a little bit slower in some cases, not in this one, but some cases it can take a little bit more time, but it's there forever. That transaction that I just sent there, time-stamped in the block, that will be there forever. So think about that when you're thinking about like different transactions of what will be on layer 1, what will be on layer 2, like bank wires will be on layer 1. You want transactions that are going to live there forever. That's what you want to be using layer 1 for. There was just another block 9 minutes ago, or just now, I guess. Foundry hit 3 in a row with the buggers. Lightning though, like if I'm gonna go to a restaurant, or if I want to buy a t-shirt online, I can pay on Lightning because I don't really need that transaction to be there forever. And you know what? I didn't need that one to be on there forever either, but it's in my cold storage. It's off. It's onto layer 1. And so I just kind of consolidated that. So anyways, hope you enjoyed that. I love this kind of stuff, as you can tell of how excited I am when I talk about this. So I hope you're having a great day today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.